Garoppolo. Thrown down. Brian Burns gets there. Spider-Man.
What a pass rush by Burns. See how quickly he got to the edge and got
This is Desmond Johnson on the Bleav and Carolina Panthers podcast, here on the Bleav Podcast Network, the #1 podcast network for professionals. Do you Bleav? If you enjoy the show, please subscribe and rate the show on iTunes. We're available in your favorite directories: iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, Luminary, and TuneIn. You can also find us at Bleav.com and at Bleav Podcast on Twitter. And welcome to a brand new edition of the Bleav and Carolina Panthers podcast, brought to you by Bet Online here on the Bleav Podcast Network. So I'm your host, Desmond Johnson, joined by Sports Illustrated Panthers beat writer Schuyler, Callihan, and Panthers all-time leading rusher Jonathan Stewart, who will be in with us here shortly. Bit of a smaller, condensed show tonight. Not a whole lot to really discuss. On Sunday, Panthers fall to 1-11, 21-18 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the road. Just real quick before we get into what the meat of today's episode is going to be about, which is the college football playoff. And if you guys got anything you want to say about the college football playoff, who got picked, who didn't get picked, you can pop them in the comment section like we normally do. Give us your opinion on who should have been in there. Before we do all of that, though, I almost forgot. Well, I did forget to do this last week. Our read from Bet Online. The last of the major pro sports leagues are off and rolling, and college basketball is ready to roll as well. Bet Online remains your top spot for all your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, and NHL are all in full swing. Bet Online is your #1 source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions. All the hoops betting action, along with every sport available at your fingertips with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to the Bet Online site today, and remember to use our promo code Bleav, BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That is Bet Online, where the game starts. And we'll start with Panthers and Bucks. 21-18 losers to the Bucks, fall to 1-18 or 1-11.
Pretty much.
I started thinking about it in this game. I was like, is this going to be the worst Panthers season of all time? Like, I feel like we're trending towards that track because I'm looking at the games that are left. I don't know if we're going to win any of them.
I mean, I don't think so. I mean, I would say the divisional games probably you have the best chance in because, let's face it, the division sucks still.
Yeah, that's what hurts the most.
The funny thing about this is I was talking about this with my buddy who's a Saints fan, and we kind of came up with this idea of if you took the star players and formulated an all-star roster of the NFC South, would they even have a winning record? Who's your quarterback? Baker Mayfield?
Oh, gosh.
Who's your head coach?
Oh, man.
James Allen, Todd Bowles, Arthur Smith, Chris Tabor. I mean, if you look at the receivers, you probably feel good about because there's some good receivers in this division. But outside of that, man, it's slim pickings. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's been a tough year. I don't see another win on this schedule unless just some crazy things happen, which it is the NFL, and that does happen every now and then. So I'd be willing to bet something happens and they find a way to get a second win, but I wouldn't hold my breath necessarily.
I don't know where it's come. I mean, at this point, it's like it's become a game of.
Hey, Trevor Lawrence is out, so we don't know if how long that's going to be. How long Trevor Lawrence is going to be out. So, I mean.
Yeah, but who's their backup? Do you know?
C.J. Beathard.
He's probably going to have the game of his life.
He's a Tyson Bagent, so.
So, I mean.
Anyhow.
I mean, my only observations from the game from Sunday, I said it to I was actually on something last week previewing that game. And I think I said it on Bleav in Panthers last week. We've said it every week. It's going to be the same script that we've seen every week. It doesn't matter who's driving the car. The car is still the same. Like it's going to be a rock fight. It's going to be close. The weather didn't help. That actually added on to it. So it was just like a messy kind of game. I don't remember if we had a specific Bryce threw a turnover at the end of the interception. So I was like, Bryce is going to give him an interception. The offense is going to do something to give him a turnover. We're going to lose by a possession. You're going to look at the box score and go, oh, man, this was kind of a close game. And it really wasn't.
I don't know what the reads were on that play, but I saw it live. And when I went back and watched it on replay, I was like, oh, my gosh. He had Miles Sanders wide open coming out of the backfield on the backside of the play. No one was paying attention. I mean, he had a safety or a corner kind of draping down a little bit, but he could have easily just, boom, slung that thing out there. But tough way to lose. Felt like they had a chance. If anything, they showed fight. So.
Yeah. And I've been having this, I've had a back and forth with my guy, Monty Fetty from the 4-Man Rush on Twitter about Bryce. Cause really the past 2 weeks, I've started to shift more towards from blindly defending Bryce because of the stuff around him to actually looking at Bryce. And I'm like, okay, yes, I understand the offensive line is trash. I get it. The receivers can't get separation. But there are times where there's, like you just said, there's open guys that he's missing. And I'm like, okay, if we're firing Frank Wright and you're firing Josh McCown and Deuce Staley's out the door too, and we assume Scott Fitter is going to be gone at the end of the year, although reports are starting to come in now that that's not necessarily a certainty. If they're the ones that built this roster, Scott Fitter in particular, for being here, 3 years, he has not drafted a Pro Bowler like in 3 years in these drafts, which is a huge indication that maybe he's not doing what he's supposed to be doing. But we're supposed to believe that even though they messed up these other draft picks, some of them that came in on the field, they got the biggest one right. And that's what we're supposed to sit here and just kind of absorb right now. That
I mean, it is kind of hard because, again, it'd be like asking a home builder to go build a house with a $2 wrench and a 50-cent hammer. I mean, he doesn't have anything to work with.
It's going to take some time.
But Des, I did tweet this out today. I'm sure you probably saw it. Scott Fitter's record, or the Panthers' record since Scott Fitter has been the GM, is 13-33. That's a winning percentage of 28.282. So that's pretty. That's actually worse than Matt Rule. In his tenure. So
I can't.
I don't see a path or a scenario in which he stays. I just don't.
See, and the problem now is because we gave up so much through multiple trades. We went over this in the last episode just to get Bryce. You can't just cut bait with him like Arizona did with Josh Rosen a couple years ago. Draft him in top 10. A year or so later, he's gone.
That's probably my only defense, I think, for Scott is that part of when Rule's here, he didn't have complete control of the roster, right? So I mean that could be part of it. But two is, look, if David Tepper is sold on Bryce Young, I mean, Scott Fitter is the one that kind of helped facilitate that trade. So if you're going to see it through with Bryce, do you want to see it through with Scott? Because if it ends up being the right thing and it works out, then no one really cares about this god-awful season. Like, it's just a one-off.
It's just a one-off.
So I don't know.
I mean, it comes down to right now this season, 2001, and which one am I missing? 2010.
Yeah,
those are in the running for worse. And 2001, that was the 1-15 season. They won the first game, I think it was against Minnesota, and then lost the next 15. That was Chris Winkie, I believe, at quarterback. And that was the end of George Seifert, I think it was, that era. And then John Fox came in right after that. 2010, that was the end of the John Fox era. That was Jimmy Clausen at quarterback. That team was different. As Mr. Jonathan Stewart joins us here on the Bleav in Panthers podcast, Stu was on that team in 2010. Like, they actually had pieces. That was a team where you could parachute a quarterback in and go. Like, they actually had a left tackle. They had 2 running backs. They had a Hall of Fame wide receiver. Like, they had defense. Like, they had all this stuff. They just didn't have a quarterback. So 2010 is different. 2001 was like we were still riding the wave a little bit from expansion era, making it to the NFC Championship game in '96, and then those vets they hired all retired and started moving on, and then you really had to build the team. So 2001 was kind of the bombing out of that. This year, I'm not sure what it is. Like, I'm not sure if it's more like 2001 or, well, no, I guess I just
it's definitely not 20.
It's like 2001 because 2010 they had a team there. They had pieces there that were former Pro Bowlers and still in their prime for the most part. Stu, before we move on to the college football playoff, because Skyler's got to get here in about 10 minutes or so, I don't want to get y'all's opinion on this as a former player for the Pac-12 and as a current writer for the Big 12. What were your takeaway? What was your takeaway from Panthers versus Bucks on Sunday?
Oh boy. Apologize for being a little late, but I mean, not all bad. More good than previous weeks, and
more normal. Yeah.
And I think that's I'll start with Chuba. I mean, he's been the most consistent, I think, piece to the offense, this whole entire season. I mean, I'll even go back to the Seattle Seahawks game where we didn't run the ball that much. And just looking at, that was a winnable game. And seeing, how well he has been playing throughout this whole year, that's a bright spot.
He's actually gotten better as the year's gone on. He's one of the few.
Yeah, and I think there's a maturity level that has taken place throughout this year. Having Miles Sanders come in, and him having to really kind of show even more why he belongs on this team, and the competitive nature when you get a guy that comes in at your position that's just as talented as you are, and I just love his professionalism as he's gone throughout this whole entire season so far, and just hopefully he stays healthy and he's able to just continue to show how dominant he is as a runner. Because I mean, you look at that second touchdown run he had, how he inside shouldered that guy at the goal line. That's something that's not taught. That's second nature. That's something that's like within him. So, I would say Mingo. I saw some bright spots with Mingo.
Probably the best game he's had all year.
Yeah.
You talk about. I mean, Steve Smith talks about Mingo in a very high regard, and I think you're starting to actually see, what he's actually talking about. He's physical, and I think he's, him and Bryce, and their connection is just getting better, and I think that to me is positive because we can sit here all day and, like we've been saying all year, it's a reset button, and new staff, quarterback situation, young guy, like people develop differently. And we have to be mindful of that, in the sense of, who these guys are on the field and their situation. What I saw between him and Mingo was, growth, right before our eyes, and I think that's a positive. Mingo seems like a guy that, when he does come into his own, it can be very special. And then, everybody talks badly and poorly right now about Scott Fitterer. But, I mean, if you look at it, I mean, the defense has been solid.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And they've been solid because of the depth that they brought in, the guys that they've brought in throughout free agency. And that's a credit to Scott Fitterer. And I don't think people should, ignore that piece. I mean, he brought in some very key figures, while he's been here, that makes that defense, go, especially while they're injured. We wouldn't be in any of these games if it wasn't for the defense. And so, looking at that game, defense gave us an opportunity yet again.
We're ranked 7th overall in total yards allowed on defense, which sounds insane when you say it out loud when you're watching these games. But I don't know if it's short fields or maybe it's just the defense doing their thing. But you're absolutely right. We haven't really had our full complement of players. That's probably the healthiest the defense has been since week 1. What we saw on Sunday, it was good to see J.C. Horn out there. So there's some things they've got to work on. It's not like the cupboard's bare. Like whoever comes in here next, they're going to have a defense. They're going to have, well, I shouldn't say that because there's some free agents that they got to deal with, but they're going to have the ability to start off with a defense and some sort of identity. That's what I was kind of waiting on Sunday. What is the identity of this team now? And play-wise, offensive play-wise, it looked like the same playbook. There's still no pre-snap. Well, they were actually doing pre-snap motion in the beginning of the game, and then they just went away.
And they started the game out, under center a lot, which I liked. Kind of giving a different look and a different feel to the offensive line. It's so important to allow the offensive line to figure out how to play together. I mean, they've been, I don't even think, like, just looking at that last game, like, it's not that our offensive line, them as players in general, they're not bad players. They're just in a system right now that they're trying to figure out, just as coaching staff is figuring it out. And it just kind of leaves them in this unfair disadvantage when they show up on game day. Because if you look at other teams, man, like other teams, they are kind of they're a bit seasoned. I mean, you look at the Cincinnati Bengals last night. They have I guess their second string quarterback come in the game.
Like Joe Burrow.
I mean, and basically, you have a system that's seasoned. You know what I'm saying? And it goes to, like, I don't know what kind of explanation you want to give. Like, if you have like a car that's a sports car, anybody gonna get in it and they're gonna be like, yo, look, my man's got a sports car. But the man driving it has never driven a sports car, but because he's in a sports car, he must be rich.
Perception
is money.
Key. Perception
is key. But it also gives that guy the confidence that's driving the sports car. You know what I'm saying? Because he knows he's in something very valuable and something very special in the season.
I'm glad you said perception, because that's a good segue into what the meat of today is going to be, because Skyler's got to get out here in the next couple of minutes, so I'm going to let him go first. College football playoff chaos. Yeah, buddy. Schuyler writes for West Virginia, who's a member of the Big 12. Texas got in, along with Michigan, Washington, and Alabama. Schuyler, you go ahead. What your thoughts on this?
I could go for an hour, and if I didn't have to get off here, y'all, it's probably a good thing because you're going to get annoyed. But look, in some respects, I don't have any sympathy for Florida State. The reason is because –
wow, really?
Well, no, hold on.
Oh,
the reason is because West Virginia went undefeated in 1993 and should have been in the national championship game. They got left out because Florida State, who got into the national championship with one loss.
There it is.
No sympathy there. But Florida State should have been in. What the hell are we doing?
Thank you.
I don't understand. You are an undefeated Power 5 conference champion.
No one's ever been left out that way. Ever.
I don't care that Jordan Travis is hurt. And
this is the reason.
Even
this
Dan
is the reason.
Even Dan Orlovsky has been saying this is not the same team. You're right. It's not. This is a better team.
You're not.
Because
this is the reason why I'm not upset. Because next year, this problem is going to be resolved.
No. I'm not doing that, because that's the 85.
No, because this is the reason why. But this is the reason why you can't be upset, because they are operating under the policy that's already set. You should have already known this was going to happen.
Nah,
you should.
No.
This is underneath the policy. That's the reason why. That's the reason why next year they're changing it.
Here's the thing. Here's where they messed up.
But what I do hate, I hate it. I do hate it for the players, because at the end of the day, the guys that show up, they play to win, and that's not their fault. That the world and the people in the committee is saying, "Hey, look, the chances of you going out there and winning is slim to none." And the thing is, TCU last year, okay,
they earned it too.
They earned it, yes. But what happened when they got up there?
They won the semifinal game, and then they got blown out by the best team in the country. Like, that could have been anybody.
Blown out.
You can't use TCU and apply to Florida State. Like, you just can't do that. Look, this is where the committee messed up. I don't have a problem with them putting Alabama in over Florida State.
Last year was put together. There was no injuries, nothing.
Florida State was
listen. But they're unfortunately
this is where they messed up.
Quarterback is hurt.
They messed up right here. I don't mind them putting Florida State. I don't mind them putting Florida State 5 and Alabama at 4.
It hurts my heart
they
to know that these guys had to watch
Georgia. They put Florida State above Georgia. Is Florida State better than Georgia?
They was left out in the dry, saying, "God, dog, I thought we was gonna get in."
Is Florida State a better team?
It hurts my heart.
Are they better than Georgia?
No.
Then why are they ranked higher than Georgia? That's where they messed up. They put him at 5, not
The
6.
policy, listen, all of it's jacked up, but that's the reason why we can't feel bad because it's already a system that's jacked up.
No,
So you
here's what I got.
man, come on, man. You can't say we
Here's
can't
my
go
final
back because it's a bad
Get with
system.
Here's my final thing before I get out.
Florida State,
Even though
Florida
we
State
can,
is a good team.
we can say that
Ain't that better
the
than
system is what it is. It doesn't mean that they didn't make the right decision. Or
You
not.
might as,
Like,
but you might as well say if they make it to the championship and they lose, you might as well say, hey, here's a participation trophy.
What if
but
Florida State beats
here's
Georgia in the Orange
here's
Bowl?
the thing.
What
Here's
happens
the
then?
thing.
What if Florida State beats
Florida
Georgia in the Orange
State-
Bowl?
Florida State won 2 games with their second and third string quarterback, while the other 2 teams that got in lost games with their starting quarterback.
Yes.
You can't go to Texas. You can't go to Alabama. You can go to Georgia and say, all you had to do was win to get in. To Florida State, what are you going to say? Don't get hurt?
Yeah, don't break your leg.
I
As long
mean,
as you don't break your leg, you're good to
You're
go.
going to punish
Listen,
everybody
Schuyler,
else on that team. You're going to punish everybody else on that team.
I'm with you.
because the
I'm with you as a former player. It hurts my heart. But what I'm trying to say is there's nothing you can do about it because these people operate off of money and policy. Period.
True.
That's what they do.
And they need to be upfront.
So what
That's my
are we
problem.
going to do?
We're blind.
Bashing our heads, Schuyler. You've been bashing your head against a wall all day, all week about this topic.
They should just tell us the truth. Just tell us the truth. You wanted the 2 best semifinal matchups. That's what they wanted.
That is the truth.
They
didn't tell us that. They're telling us that Florida State doesn't have a chance. They're
They
predicting
don't
the
have to
outcome.
tell you that. They don't have to tell you that.
They
We
didn't
know
want
the
to
answer.
leave an SEC champion
Then
out.
they didn't need to tell us why Florida State didn't make it. You know what I mean? They didn't have to go through the trouble. That's my problem. I don't care that Alabama got in over Florida State. That's fine.
That can be one of the 3 reasons. The other 2 mean more.
Tell us that. That's why I'm mad at the committee. See, I don't even got the
Tell them
button.
why you're mad. Tell them why you're mad.
I don't even got the button ready for the. That's why I'm not mad at the committee for putting them in. I'm not mad at that. I completely understand the argument.
Last thing, I seriously got to go.
You got to get out of here.
Yeah, I seriously got to go. So all I'm going to say is whether it's the right decision or not, in my humble opinion, you cannot punish the rest of that team for overcoming adversity. Florida State overcame more adversity than anybody in the college football playoff. Those guys deserve to be there. They've proven that they can win games with their backup quarterback. It is purely subjective to look at this and say, oh, they can't go out there and beat the number 1 seed. You're projecting at that point. Your job's not to project.
Yeah, you're projecting.
Your job is to put the 4 teams in there that are supposed to be in there. So
they're supposed to get a chance.
I'm going to come back on this show next week and finish my segment here. But I'm gonna hop off here and I'll rewatch this because I want to see you guys go at it. So y'all go for it. I'm gonna grab my popcorn when I get back. So, later, y'all.
Schuyler Callihan from Sports Illustrated. But no, that's my thing. I don't care that they put. I even see the argument for putting Alabama in. Like, yeah, Alabama, Michigan. That sounds like a great semifinal. Washington versus Texas. That sounds great. Is that better than Michigan, Florida State? Probably. But don't say that Florida State is a worse team when they did everything they were.
So you about the principle.
Don't lie to us.
The principle. Okay.
Exactly. Like, don't say that they're
the principle too. And the principle is what hurts, right? The principle of all this is that you play the game to win. Florida State has done that, despite what they've gone through. So give them a shot. Okay, well, you're not giving them a shot because you don't want a bad product on the field when it comes to this big money spending and the money that's coming into the championship run for these 4 teams. And that's what you would like to hear, but you ain't gonna hear that. So that's why I'm saying no. I don't like. You can't feel nothing. You got to get over it.
I feel for these kids. I do feel for the kids. Because the Florida State kids, they poured their. I mean, Florida State's been down for years. Like, this was the reemergence of Florida State. And then somebody asked this question to me the other day, and I was like, you know what? I don't know. What if Florida State was 13-0 and all this had happened? They're on their backup court. Everyone keeps saying 3rd string, but the 2nd string guy has a concussion. They're not going to play till January 1st. He would probably be playing that game. What if Deion Sanders was the head coach of Florida State and not Mike Norvell with Florida State?
That's a great question. You didn't hit a whole nother switch.
You know how we don't believe in
Now
Panthers.
my whole mind shift. So now my whole brain didn't went away from everything I just said.
Now you're seeing what I'm saying. They put in Alabama because of Godfather Nick Saban and the reputation.
So Desmond, what you really saying is what we already know. And what you mad about is that they just won't tell us that.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you why we mad, son.
Like, just be upfront with us. Like, we want the best two matchups. Don't be like, well, Jordan Travis, broke his leg, and we don't know if they can beat him, and blah blah. Y'all, you already circumvented that in 2014 when you let Ohio State in, and they were on their third string quarterback, Cardale Jones. And what did they do? They blew out Wisconsin, got to the playoff, and won the whole thing.
Yeah, they don't. The problem is that when you dealing with people making a lot of money like that, they ain't got to answer to us.
Yeah, for real. That's
how they treat us. That's really how they treat us.
But they're trying to answer. They don't have to, but they're trying to explain themselves. Like, they know they got their hand caught in the cookie jar. Like, they see. I think they expected, if we leave Florida State out, there's way less Florida State fans will be mad at us than if we leave Alabama out. And there's gonna be a whole state of Alabama mad at us that we left Alabama out 2 years in a row. Like, they weren't gonna no SEC team at all in the playoff. I think that's what it came down to, because you couldn't put Georgia in. They just lost to Bama.
Yeah, and Nissan. Where's Nissan built at?
Japan.
But they got that. They the Heisman. They the
Heisman. Yeah.
So the Heisman car is like, hey, we got a lot of dealings with Alabama.
What y'all doing?
Got a lot of Heisman guys over here.
I will say Michigan and Washington deserve to be in the spots that they're in. Like,
absolutely,
they're probably the two best teams in the country. My problem, Alabama's gonna mess this whole thing up. They are. They're gonna end up being national champion. Now
they are.
I
don't think so.
Well, I don't think so. I feel like Michigan should beat Alabama. They feel like they've been the best team. But I feel
like Michigan is the closest. They're the closest team to Alabama in how they win games.
Yeah, I will agree with that. Harbaugh, man, the way he builds these teams, it's just That's another thing too. Somebody brought up. Why are we mad at Alabama and not talking about Michigan? And while they're included, their coach got suspended twice this year. They're in the middle of a cheating scandal, and they're sitting at the top of the poll. Ain't nobody saying nothing about them. So
that's basically because everybody does what he did. Basically.
Yeah, because when we asked you about it like weeks ago, we were like, "Is that a big deal?" You're like, "No, not really. Everybody does it." So.
You ain't cheating. You ain't trying.
What was the other thing he got suspended for? He bought like 3 cheeseburgers or something, like on a recruiting trip for some kids or something. Like, that was the first one back in the summer. Because remember, he had to miss the first 3 games of the year for that.
Because the kids was hungry?
He didn't report it or something, or he lied about it or something. I don't know. It was something stupid.
At the end of the day, with all this money flying around in NIL, I don't want to.
Dude, there's 1,100 kids.
You got quarterbacks. You got quarterbacks in the portal that's worth $4 million. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. I'm Caleb Williams. I'm probably coming back to school. Like, he's already taken himself out the bowl game, so I guess he's coming. But man, I think somebody told me Bryce Young made like a couple $1 million in NIL money in like a year. Like, for last year, he was at Alabama. Like, that's nice. Some of these guys do, man, they don't even need to go. Like, they're set up, and now the NCAA is setting up this whole thing where the schools can pay them directly through a trust fund and all this other stuff. It's pay for play. Like, you use about a decade too early, dude. Like, yeah, because
if I was like, I could have been like a super thing.
Yeah, like 8-year senior. Like, some of these
places, man. You could have came up a little bit.
So I mean, and that circles back around too, because Jim Harbaugh was actually in Charlotte today, which threw up some alarm bells there. Well, not alarm bells, but some bells and whistles. Not for what people think, although he might have snuck over to BOA while he was here. The number one quarterback.
I don't think that's allowed right now, so I don't think that would happen.
Well, they can't talk to coaches whose teams are in the playoffs until the divisional round. But that ain't Jim Harbaugh. They can talk to him. They can talk to college coaches, whoever. He was here visiting Jaden Davis, the quarterback at Providence Day, who's committed to Michigan. I think he's the number one quarterback prospect in the country, and their number 2 wide receivers going to Michigan too. So it was a house visit, but it was in Charlotte. Harbaugh called last year. Things are open. We were talking about Scott Fitter and if he was going to stay or if they're going to let him go. I could kind of see a scenario where Fitter remains, but the general manager, like, roster stuff kind of goes back to the coach, like the way it was with Matt Rule. I'd rather Jim Harbaugh doing the power that Matt Rule had than Matt Rule having the power he had, because we've seen Jim Harbaugh kind of build teams before, you know.
49ers were real dominant with Patrick Willis.
Yeah, man,
on defense, and they had Frank Gore. They was out there doing their thing, man. It was incredible to watch.
The identity, like they had identity, like you knew what they were about. You know,
knew what they were going to do, especially with Frank Gore back there. I mean, without Frank Gore, they'd be in trouble. But
especially the very beginning. And then he found Kaepernick.
Kaepernick came in, and they really did their thing for a minute there.
So So we'll keep an eye on that too, the Jim Harbaugh stuff. And then, like I said, with the college football playoff, it's going to 12 next year, and the argument then will be, you know, who are the 3 lost teams that are going to get in the 11th and 12th seeds or whatever. Is 12 too many?
No, I don't think so. I think that's pretty good, because I mean, you'll be able to get a mixture of like who really belongs, right? You get you know, guys that are like, you know, right there on the fringe of top 10, and you know, those guys beat somebody that is top 4, top 8, then you really get a good idea as far as, you know, the competitive level of the NCAA.
That was another telltale sign. This was a steal by the committee. Like, they literally, I think they went into this last week and were like, okay, this is what we're going to do. If this is what happens, this is what we're going to do to make this right. Because Florida State's quarterback's been hurt for what, 2-3 weeks? Why didn't they drop right after? They kept him at 4 this whole time until the last week when they actually won. Like, why wouldn't they have dropped them then? It's the same argument, right?
That's a good argument. I mean, everything that I was saying earlier was basically like, look, Florida State, do they deserve to be in the playoffs? Yes.
Yeah.
Every last one of those players deserves a chance to be able to like be awarded, you know, this opportunity to be able to play on a level of excellence, because that's exactly what they've been all year, was excellent. You know, they've been able to prove by being undefeated that, hey, look, we are the best, or at least one of the best, without our starting quarterback. You know what I'm saying? So, and too, like, and at the end of the day, too, at the college level, you never know what could happen. You know what I'm saying? Like, a star could be born. Like with Alabama's, you know, we've seen time and time after time again with Tua and Jalen Hurts, that whole situation where one guy goes down and the guy comes in and still wins, you know, a national title.
Kind of robbed us of a potential storyline. Like, what if Florida State had won the whole thing without their starting quarterback? That would have been a huge thing, not just for Florida State, but the ACC. I feel bad for the ACC, because to me, it's almost
But I honestly think you can blame TCU last year.
Yeah, that was Stephen A's thing too. That Stephen A messed it up. You messed it up.
That's the biggest thing. So, but yo, look, man, I got to jet out.
This is gonna be a short episode anyway. Because I got something right here at 6:30. So again, we didn't really hit a whole lot on Panthers Saints, or Panthers Bucks. Panthers Saints this Sunday. Believe it's at 1:00 on Fox. We'll have more with that, and by then we'll have a little bit more information in terms of the Panthers front office, what's going on there. We'll kind of dive a little bit deeper into the personnel that they have and what they're trying to do, because we'll have 2 games to kind of look at and figure out if anything's changed at all, or if they're just, you know, going through the motions. So we'll see what that is. But we're going to cut it right here. For Schuyler Callihan, from Jonathan Stewart, I'm Desmond Johnson. You've been listening and watching a condensed version of Bleav in Carolina Panthers for this week here on Bleav Podcast Networks, presented by Bet Online. Keep at it.